In the beginning of the story, we see a scene from September 2020 in which we see the Korean army who were on their duty. It felt as if a war was going on. And then we see many dead bodies there which were of humans, but their condition was very bad. Here we find out that the army was not facing the army of another country but monsters. Such a virus had spread in the city that humans were turning into monsters. And then we see a boy who is moving towards them. The army officer tells him, "Stop right there." And when he does not stop even after their warning, those people shoot him. But the strange thing was that even after being hit by a bullet, he does not stop and keeps moving forward. After this, we see a scene from 1 month earlier, meaning August 2020. Now we see that same boy whose name was Hyun-soo, and he is the main character of our story. He was going home, then we see the building's watchman who was cutting grass. But then a blade comes out from his machine and flies towards Hyun-soo, but he is saved just in time. Then we find out that he has just shifted to a flat in this building. In the next scene, we see Hyun-soo, who is sitting in his room and looking very sad. He gets up and goes towards the window and thinks, "Should I commit suicide?" On the other side, we see the guard who was sleeping in the office. Then a resident of the building comes there and scolds him, saying, "You are always sleeping. At least pay attention to your work sometimes." After this, a lady comes there who gives a box of fish to the guard, saying, "You eat this because I do not eat this particular fish." But after her departure, when the guard opens that box, a very strong smell comes from that fish, due to which blood starts coming out of his nose. Here, Hyun-soo sees a girl on the terrace whose name was Yeon-yu. She was practicing dance, and Hyun-soo likes that girl at first sight. They both start talking to each other, and Yeon-yu also offers a cigarette to Hyun-soo. In the next scene, we see that guard who comes to Hyun-soo and asks him to sign some verification documents. Along with that, he also apologizes to him for his behavior because in the morning he had spoken to Hyun-soo very rudely. But Hyun-soo refuses to sign and says, "I will do it later." After this, he is about to go into his room when that guard stops him again and gives him a drink, which Hyun-soo takes. But that guard's behavior was very strange. Then Hyun-soo notices that the guard was standing right outside Hyun-soo's door trying to look inside, and this thing feels very scary to Hyun-soo. After this, we see a girl whose name is Jisoo. She was an artist and was composing her song. She practices singing her song for a while and then gets ready because she had to go somewhere perhaps. But as soon as she goes outside, she meets a lady who was going somewhere with a baby stroller, but there was no baby in that stroller, which Jisoo finds very strange. But even stranger was that the lady was pretending as if there was truly a 1-year-old baby in that stroller. After which, she meets a man named Jae-hyun who tells her that lady's daughter has died, but she has not been able to accept this fact until now. That is why she is behaving like this. Hearing this, Jisoo feels very bad for that lady. After this, Jae-hyun starts telling her about himself and says, "I am a Korean teacher," meaning he teaches the Korean language to people who come here. After this, we see another man whose name was Sang-wook. There were very strange marks on that man's face, and he was very strange too. He neither talked much to anyone nor mixed with others. Here we see Yoon-yu, whose foot had a sprain due to excessive dancing. And then her brother comes to her, whose name is Lee-yoon. He gives Yoon-yu her dance class fee, but Yoon-yu says, "I have already paid the fee." Hearing this, he is surprised and asks her, "Where did you get the money from?" But she gives no answer to this, meaning the relationship between those two siblings was not good. In the next scene, we see Sang-wook, who was torturing a boy. He had taped the boy's entire body and face, and then he shows him a picture. But that boy knew nothing about it. So in anger, he puts a burning cigarette into his mouth. After which we see Eun-yu, who was smoking a cigarette with Sang-wook, and says to him, "Are you some kind of gangster? Because your personality is exactly like that." Hearing this, he is unable to give her any answer. Here, Hyun-soo is chatting with his friends on his mobile. Then they start talking about a disease and tell him, "This is a very dangerous disease. In this, blood first comes out of the nose." But he does not pay much attention to all their talk. Then Hyun-soo gets a message that his parcel has arrived. So he goes outside, but food was scattered everywhere in the corridor, which he finds very strange. And then something very strange happens. He sees his neighbor who was killing her own cat and eating its head and was saying in a very terrifying voice, "I am feeling hungry." Seeing all this, Hyun-soo gets scared and goes into his room to hide in bed. Then that lady knocks on his door and says, "Please open the door. I need your help. I am very scared." So Hyun-soo says, "Yes, I will open it, but first you show your hand." But then that lady suddenly becomes violent. Her eyes become strange and blood starts coming from her nose. And in a little while, she also leaves from there. So Hyun-soo comes out with a stick and sees Sang-wook right in front of him. He was about to ask him about that lady, but then his sight falls on Sang-wook's feet from where blood was coming out. So he faints right there. After this, that infected lady comes to Jisoo's door and asks her to open the door. She was looking so terrifying that Jisoo gets very scared. And when she does not open the door, she also leaves from there. Here, Lee Yun is about to go to the office, so he says to Eun-yu, "Please do not eat noodles. Please eat something healthy." But she gives no answer to his talk. In the next scene, Jisoo tells Sang-wook, "I saw a very strange-looking woman. She was very scary." And pointing towards the window, she says, "Maybe she jumped out from there." Here, Lee Yun comes out and sees that the building's main door has been closed, and no one knew why this had happened. Then he meets a lady there, who was a firefighter. Her name was Yi-kyung. She asks Lee Yun, "Is there a signal on your mobile?" So he checks his phone, and shockingly, the signal was not coming in his phone either. After this, they all find out that all the building's entrance and exit doors have been closed, meaning they all could not go out of the building now. But why? No one had the answer to this. And seeing this situation, those people break the manager's office door and try to call from the landline. Then they find out that an emergency has been imposed in the whole city and all the forces are busy handling it. They were getting worried about this when a man sees a button which was perhaps to open the door. He screams, "Look, I found the button. We can open the door and go out with this." And hearing this, everyone gets happy. But as soon as they open the door, a very strange man was standing outside. He did not look like a human from anywhere. He takes advantage of the chance and comes inside and opens his mouth, which was looking very terrifying. Then Lee Yun screams, "Close the door!" and starts pushing that monster out with a fire extinguisher. But that fire extinguisher ran out. So that firefighter takes courage and jumps out with that monster, but Lee Yun pulls her inside at the right time, due to which she was saved just in time from that monster's attack. Now they all did not understand what all that they saw just a little while ago was. Was it a monster or a human? Then Lee Yun says, "There is not just one, but many monsters outside." And then we see the scene outside where there were monsters everywhere. It felt as if monsters were having a party. After which we see Hyun-soo, from whose nose blood was also coming, meaning he had also become infected. So was he also about to become a monster now? The story now goes into the past, and we see 17-year-old Hyun-soo, who was sitting at the computer playing games. And here we also see many cuts on his hand, from which we find out that he was not mentally well either. After which we see his family, his sister and mom and dad, who were always fighting with each other. They were going somewhere in a car, but then a truck comes from the front and blood suddenly starts bleeding from that truck driver's nose, due to which he loses control over the truck, and it directly crashes into Hyun-soo's family's car. In this accident, they all are killed. Now we see the scene of their funeral where Hyun-soo was screaming, "Why did all my family members leave me?" And he was not crying because his family members were gone now, but because they did not leave any money for him. And hearing this, all the people find it very strange that he is more worried about money than the death of his family members. Coming back to the present, we see Jisoo, who is sitting near Hyun-soo, and Hyun-soo's body had become completely cold. Then we see the computer screen where all the symptoms and stages of this disease were written. The scene shifts from here to Sang-wook, on whom that same infected woman attacks and bites him, but Sang-wook was very strong. He kills that woman. After which we see that firefighter who picks up the phone of that man, whom that monster had killed. She becomes very emotional seeing that man's family photo in his phone. On the other side, Jisoo meets that same security guard on the stairs who had become infected. He attacks Jisoo, but Jisoo kills him with her baseball bat. After this, we see a lady who was insisting on opening the gate because her daughter was outside, but Lee Yun explains to her, "We cannot open the gate." And then an emergency alert comes on everyone's phone saying no one should come out of their house. But they all were not understanding anything about what exactly was going on and how all this happened suddenly. Now all the people decide to find a safe place and start going up towards the supermarket. But the owner there refuses to let those people go inside and says, "Who knows what the conditions are there? Let it not be that we all go there and fall into some danger." They were talking about these things when Sang-wook goes there, whom that infected lady had bitten. And seeing this, everyone finds out that he has also become infected now. That is why the supermarket owner makes him unconscious by giving him an electric shock. After this, we see Yoon-yu, who was very scared seeing so much blood, but she was still controlling herself and was not letting it show to anyone how much she had become scared. After this, we see a scene from a few hours ago when blood was coming out of Hyun-soo's nose. Seeing this, he researches it on the internet. Then he finds out that this is not a disease, but a curse. And if this has happened to you, then you should finish yourself so that no one else gets harmed harmed by you, but when he tries to search, can an infected person survive? The internet also stops. After which, Hyun-soo opens his room door to go out from there. Then that security guard monster comes into his room, whose head was cut. He could not see, but even now his hearing power was very high. Hyun-soo sees him and hides, so he goes away from there. Here, the supermarket owner tries to kill Sang-wook, but Sang-wook was much stronger than him. He knocks him down in one stroke and makes him unconscious. On the other side, Jisoo and Jaehyun find that same man whom Sang-wook was torturing. They give him water. Then that man asks them, "What is going on here?" So they tell him everything and take him out with them where everyone had gathered. They all decide that they all will go and hide in the daycare because it is a bit far from the gate. But then, that woman who was insisting on meeting her daughter stands in everyone's way and says, "I will not let anyone go there," because she was the director of the daycare, and she puts a condition before Lee Yun, "Let me go outside." So he says, "What will you do after going outside? Neither is there a signal, nor is the internet working. You cannot find your daughter. Wisdom lies in letting the situation become normal now. Then you go outside." Here, Hyun-soo sees a man from his building's window who was going down with a rope to help his family, but then a monster comes there and eats him. Hyun-soo tries to help them, but then that monster enters his room and catches him. Hyun-soo thinks, "Now my last time has come." But then his neighbor kills that monster and tells him by writing on a paper, "These monsters never die." After this, that wounded man says to Jisoo and Jaehyun, "Now both of you go. I can take care of myself." While on the other side, Yoon-yu was following Sang-wook, due to which he was getting very angry and says to her, "Stay away from me." But she was still following him. They both were going towards the upper floors from the stairs. Here, Hyun-soo meets his neighbor Doo-sik and finds out that Doo-sik is paralyzed and cannot help him. But he had many weapons with which they could help him. But Hyun-soo had to save those two children trapped in that apartment. That is why Doo-sik makes a weapon for him and gives it to him. And then Hyun-soo sets out to save those children. And he meets many monsters on the way, like that security guard monster. On the other side, the electricity of the entire building was gone. And for this reason, all the things kept in the supermarket were also getting spoiled. And the supermarket owner vents his anger on his wife too. But Lee Yun and Jisoo handle the matter and say, "We will check now. Maybe the electricity will come back," because outside there was electricity here and there. That is why they go into the CCTV footage room, and seeing the conditions outside, they understand that they all have been locked only for their safety. Here, Hyun-soo comes to those two children to save them. Both those children were crying for their daddy, so Hyun-soo explains to them lovingly, "Now your daddy can never come back. He has left you people," and starts explaining to them, "There is an uncle upstairs. He has food and water, everything. We have to go to him." But as soon as they go out from there, blood starts coming from Hyun-soo's nose again. So he says to those children, "Both of you move forward quickly." After this, he starts stopping his monster from overpowering him and starts thinking about his school time, how all the students in school used to harass him and used to blame him for whatever happened with his family. They all used to call Hyun-soo unlucky. Now, hearing all these things, Hyun-soo starts smiling in a very strange way, and his eyes also became completely black, and he was looking very scary. After this, we are shown another flashback. Hyun-soo is going somewhere for an outing with his family, and his dad was getting very angry with him because he did not have any time at all for his family. And then a truck driver comes from the front whose nose was bleeding, and they have an accident with that truck. But we have seen this flashback before. At that time, Hyun-soo was not with his family. And even if he was, why did he not die? Or maybe this could also be that all these were Hyun-soo's mind's imaginations, by thinking of which he was controlling himself. Now we see Hyun-soo in the hospital where everything was normal. He comes to consciousness and is a bit surprised. Then his uncle comes to meet him, so he says to him, "I saw a dream, and it was very bad and terrifying." So his uncle says to him, "Your family could not survive, but even now you have a chance. Manage your life and do something good for your future." The scene changes again, and we see Hyun-soo standing in front of the mirror, laughing in a strange way. His eyes were black, and that too, completely. Now in the present, both those children run from there. But then a very fat and big monster comes in front of them. Seeing him, both get very scared, and he attacks those children, but then Hyun-soo catches him and tries to stop him. But that monster was very big and powerful. Hyun-soo alone could not handle him. And then Jisoo and Jaehyun come there. Jaehyun kills him with his sword. but both of them were considering Hyun-soo a monster. That is why he asks them for help and says, "Please save those children." Here, those children reach near the stairs, then they find that security guard monster. So they become completely still. He was about to leave from there when that fat monster comes there, and a fight occurs between those two monsters. The children run and go upstairs and try to take someone's help, but no one opens the door. Then that monster also comes back towards the children. Then a woman comes between them. This woman was the same one whose child had died. On the other side, that firefighter finds the electricity switch by turning which on, the building's electricity also comes. After this, we see Song-wook, who was taping his body because he had become infected, and he had done this to stop himself from becoming a monster. After which we see an emergency news on TV in which the president was saying to the people, "These monsters are very dangerous, that's why you all have to stay safe." But then something happens to him too, and he also turns into a monster. In the next scene, we see that lady who destroys her doll, which she used to keep in the stroller considering it a child, and she herself dies as a human to become a monster. But then, Jae-soo, Jae-hyun, and Hyun-soo reach there. Jae-hyun distracts that monster's attention, and in the meantime, Hyun-soo takes the children to Do-sik's apartment so that they all can stay safe. After which we see that lady who had become a monster, but now she had become normal again, meaning she too was somewhere just like Hyun-soo, and even now she was worried only about the children. After this, we see Jisoo, who was worried about Jae-hyun, whether he is still alive or not, and she finds him too. And then they both come to Jisoo's room, seeing which Jae-hyun asks her, "Is your room always this dirty and messy?" So Jisoo is surprised and says to him, "At this time you are thinking about this?" And as she is about to leave from there, he says to her, "Will you leave your guitar here?" So she picks up her guitar. Here, Lee-yeon was looking for his sister, but she was tying a bandage on her foot because a strange mark had appeared on her foot. And then she looks at her dress and cuts it. In the next scene, we see all the people who were in Do-sik's apartment, and they all were eating food. But that firefighter was not among them. After which we see that firefighter who was trapped in a monster's trap, but she was still alive until now. Lee-yeon gets worried about her because the electricity had come back long ago. By that account, she should have come too. He tries to contact her too, but he gets no contact with the firefighter. Here we see all the people who were sleeping, and Hyun-soo and some people were keeping watch, and they all were talking to each other. Hyun-soo says to Jisoo, "I am infected. If I become a monster, you kill me." She also says the same to him, "If I become a monster, you also kill me." They all were now completing the days of life in this same fear. In the next scene, we see the supermarket owner who was not reducing his greed even in these conditions. He was not ready to help anyone. That is why he had closed his supermarket door so that no one could take items for free. But then that man comes there, whom Sang-wook was torturing. He had brought free food and drink items for all of them, seeing which everyone gets happy. Then a music starts playing, hearing which that supermarket owner gets scared and says, "Let it not be that the big and fat monster comes back hearing this noise." After which Lee-yeon informs everyone come to the first floor so that everyone stays together. And taking advantage of this same chance, that woman who was searching for her daughter opens the door's button. She wanted to go outside because she had got her daughter's location. Her daughter was right outside and was alive too. But as soon as they open the door, in front of their eyes, that monster kills that woman's daughter. And he also attacks the people standing inside, from which Lee-yeon is saved just in time because he remains standing completely still. While upstairs, Jisoo, Hyun-soo, and Jae-hyun knew nothing about this. They all start going to the first floor so that they can help. And Hyun-soo says to the children, "I will definitely come back. You people wait for me." Then we are shown today's date. Today was August 18th, and it was the 4th day of lockdown. After which we see a girl, Yuri, and her dad, who were in their room. And Yuri's dad says to her, "I also want to go to help everyone." Here, seeing that woman, everyone was feeling very sad for her because that poor woman had seen her daughter die in front of her eyes. Now we see that firefighter who was trapped in a monster's web in the basement. She somehow gets out from that monster's clutches and comes to Lee-yeon and throws a punch at his stomach and says, "You knew there was a monster there, right? That's why you did not go there yourself. You sent me." So he remains completely quiet, and the firefighter leaves from there. After this, alarms start ringing in the whole country, and along with that, a lady officer tells everyone, from now on, martial law is being imposed in the country, meaning from now on, whatever decision is made, only the army will make it. And she also tells along with that, "We cannot say anything about when this disease will end, but we certainly know this much that these monsters never die. Whenever any human is infected, there is a time of only 1 hour in between in which he becomes a monster. We have to kill him in that 1 hour only. Otherwise, he will never die. And this time was given the name Golden Period. Here, Jae-hyun, Jisoo, and Hyun-soo find a corpse, and it felt like that person had just died. Then something happens to Hyun-soo and he faints, after which he sees that he is standing in front of his family's photo crying. But then some people come there and drag him away. Then his eyes open, and Eun-yu was standing in front of him a bit angrily. She says to him, "I told you, do not die here." And saying this, she leaves from there. Then Lee Yoon comes there and he says to Hyun-soo, "Are you all right? Do you know you were unconscious for 3 hours? Because you fell from the 9th floor, I am surprised that you still survived." After which Hyun-soo comes out, then that supermarket owner shows him a blade and says, "A monster like you should not be among us. I will kill you." So hearing this thing, Lee Yoon says to everyone who wants to keep Hyun-soo with us and everyone who does not want to keep him can all give their respective votes, and all the people give their respective votes, which were equal, meaning half the people wanted that he should go, while the remaining half wanted that he should stay here. But the supermarket owner starts making noise and says, "What is there to think in this? A monster cannot stay with us. Throw him out from here." But then blood starts coming from his own nose and he faints. Now, when that owner comes to consciousness, Hyun-soo tells him, "You have also become infected." Hearing which, he says to Hyun-soo, "Please tell me, how do you control yourself?" So he says, "I will not say much, but you are very shameless. Please reduce the greed within you a bit. Otherwise, it will become a trouble for you." Here, Jisoo consoles that woman who had lost her daughter, after which she herself also goes into the bathroom and starts crying because she too had lost a boy a long time ago. That boy only had given the guitar to her. After this, we see Sang-wook, who again finds that boy and beats him a lot. It was not understandable why even in such a condition he was still after him. That boy runs and comes to all the others and says while lying, "Look, blood is coming from my nose. I am infected. Lock me up." But everyone could see that he has just come after getting beaten up, and they all understand that he is lying. In the next scene, we see the supermarket owner's wife, who gives a pregnancy kit to the firefighter and asks her to check because she felt like she is pregnant. Here the children come and tell Dusik that Auntie has not come out of the bathroom for an hour, and they open the door and see, then inside was a fetus monster. Seeing which, Dusik becomes emotional and closes the door again. Here, Lee Yun calls Hyun-soo. So the supermarket owner says to him, "Do not listen to them. These people are using you." But Hyun-soo still goes to listen to Lee Yun's talk. Lee Yun says to him, "Now you will have to work for me and bring that man to me who made these weapons and gave them to you," and meaning Dusik. After which we see the children who ask Dusik about that woman who was taking care of them. So he says, "Now you people will have to live without her because now she is not going to come back." Here, that woman whose daughter had died says to Sang-wook, "You look like a gangster. Please help me get out from here." But he pushes them and goes away from there. After which we see Lee Yun, who says something in Hyun-soo's ear. In the next scene, we see the supermarket owner, who was hurting his wife and says, "Bring good food for me. Otherwise, if I become a monster, I will kill you first." After this, we see Hyun-soo going upstairs, and here we are shown that Lee Yun had said, in Hyun-soo's ear, "It is very important to save Dusik, even if the children have to be left to die for it." Hearing which, Hyun-soo does not like it at all because somewhere he was not letting himself become a monster because of these children. In the next scene, a fight occurs between the firefighter and Lee Yun. The firefighter says to him, "How can you do this? Hyun-soo is a monster. Do you know the meaning of keeping him among everyone?" So he says, "We need Dusik because he has weapons, and Hyun-soo is also very useful to us. He fell from the 9th floor, still he did not die, and he is not letting his own monster come out. He is not a normal person." The truth was that they all were very scared. It was not being understood who is a friend and who is an enemy. When Lee Yun and the firefighter were talking these things, then Jisoo was also listening to all their talk while hiding. After this, Lee Yun says to the firefighter, "I do not know how all this started, but there was someone who already knew about this, that this is a curse." And he shows a screenshot of a blog that man had written on the internet to the firefighter. Seeing which she is shocked, because the account from which that blog was posted was her fiancé's, meaning he already knew about this. But if it was so, why did he not tell the firefighter anything? In the next scene, we see Sang-wook, on whom a monster attacks, and then Hyun-soo comes to save him, so he too gets wounded and faints. Then Yori and her dad save them both and kill the monster. Hyun-soo's eyes open. Then he was at Yori and her dad's house. He is about to leave from there, so those people ask him to apply medicine, but he starts leaving from there. And seeing this, those people are very surprised that his wounds were healing by themselves. Those people understand that Hyun-soo is a monster. At first, those people get a bit scared, but then Yori's dad says, "No, I am not afraid of you. I am going to die anyway. Are you going to save those children? You let it be. I will go." Here that wounded man was looking for the apartment key in his pocket, but he finds no key. We find out that Sang-wook had stolen that key, after which we see Sang-wook who takes that key and goes inside that man's apartment where many photos were put up. And here we find out that the man used to torture children. That is why Sang-wook was after him. After which we see a fight between that man and Sang-wook. Sang-wook beats him so much with a hammer in front of everyone that his head opens up, and then he opens the door and throws his body out so that the monsters eat him, and brings that woman's body inside so that she can meet her mother. But he himself did not want to come inside. That is why he was about to close the door from outside when Jae-hyun catches the door. Sang-wook was very wounded. He cannot apply force for long and faints, so Jae-hyun brings him inside, after which we see both children who were in the daycare. And then that little brother says to his sister, "When will our daddy come back?" Hearing which, his sister starts explaining to him and says, "Our daddy can never come back now. Even if he came, we will not like it at all seeing him." And then that woman whose daughter had died comes there. She hugs those children, and they all start crying very much. Now we see Hyeon-soo, whose eyes had become like a monster's. He was going towards the upper floors to fight the rest of the monsters. And then we see that long-tongued monster who was eating the corpse of that man whom Sang-wook had killed. And at that same time, a big monster comes there, who picks up that small monster and eats him. Now we see a scene from the past in which Sang-wook comes to a boy and says to him, "Why did you do this?" So that boy starts laughing. Here we find out that Sang-wook's family died by burning in a fire, and all this happened because of that boy. That is why he kills that boy to take revenge. The scene changes again, and we see Sang-wook, who had now become a gangster. And then a man comes to him and requests him, "Please find my daughter." And Sang-wook does exactly this. He finds his daughter too and kills all the other kidnappers too. Now when he comes to consciousness, Yuri was bandaging him. He starts choking her throat and says to her, "Stay away from me." Hearing which, she leaves from there in anger. Yuri's dad wanted to go outside. That's why Yuri explains to him, "It is not right for you to go outside now because there is a lot of danger outside." The scene comes back to Sang-wook, who burns that kidnapper's apartment key and those coins too, which he had taken from someone, because he felt like he could not complete his mission since he could not find those children, and anyway, those children must have died by now. After this, we see Jisoo, who becomes infected and starts doing strange things, so everyone catches her in a net. Now the story goes into the past, and we see the firefighter who was flirting with her fiancé, Song-won. And then her sight goes to that blog. But Song-won involves her in some other talk. Now in the present, the firefighter decides to go to her fiancé's office. Hearing which, that lady whose daughter had died tries to stop her, but she does not listen to her talk. After which, we see Yoon-yu, who was making fun of Jisoo because she had become infected. And hearing this, Jisoo says to Yoon-yu, "There is no need to be very happy because you two are going to be infected very soon." Both of them did not like each other, and there was no special reason for this. Here, Sang-wook and Jae-hyun are sitting together having a drink, and Jae-hyun starts telling Sang-wook about himself and says, "I had a great addiction to drinking, but then I came under God's shelter and I left all this," and starts explaining to Sang-wook and says, "You are a good man. Just change your way of fighting." Now from the next day, all the people were following rules. They were eating food in control, and along with that, checking their temperature too. Hyun-soo used to go out for all of them to bring food from apartments and then lock himself in the room again. Seeing all this, Do-sik feels very bad, and he says to Lee-yoon, "You are doing all this very wrongly with him." So he says, Hyun-soo is very dangerous, but still we need him because even if he gets wounded, his wounds heal. In the next scene, we see the firefighter who goes to her fiancé's office where no one was. She goes inside the office and unlocks her fiancé's laptop. Then she finds out that her fiancé was already infected for 10 days and he had written his entire situation in it. She was still reading it when the army comes there and catches her. Here, the food and water of the people living in the building was about to end now. Jisoo says to Lee-yoon, "What will we do now?" So he says, "This is just the beginning. Many difficulties are going to come ahead." Hearing which, Jisoo says to him, "How do you keep yourself so calm? Are you sure that we will survive?" Here, Hyeon-soo was fighting with himself so that he does not become a monster. But as soon as he comes to consciousness, he sees Yoon-yu in front of him. Yoon-yu, seeing the marks on his hand, says, "How did these happen?" So he says, "Because of my own self." So Yoon-yu says to him, "Apply medicine on your wounds." On which he says, "No, I will get better on my own." So her mood is ruined just hearing this, and she says to him, "Don't you understand? I do not like seeing you in this condition," and goes outside from there where she meets Lee-yoon and Jisoo. She starts fighting with Jisoo too and says to Lee-yoon, "You are not my real brother at all," and at which point he slaps her. On the other side, the army people had hung that firefighter. She asks the army officer about her fiancé, so that officer says to her, "You have found out that he was infected, so understand what we did with him," meaning those people had killed him. After this, she asked that firefighter about any such person who has not become a monster, even after passing the golden period. So she tells them about Hyun-soo. Here we see Hyun-soo, who comes to the parking area, then a sticky monster catches him. And now that monster also comes out, which was in the basement. That monster gets after the children. They were just thinking about facing those two monsters when a monster, running like lightning, also comes there. And that monster catches the little girl. Do-sik tries very hard to save her, but he cannot do so. After which the remaining survivors all sit in the car and run to save their lives, but those monsters crash their car. And then they face many monsters. Those people fight with all of them, after which that spider-looking monster starts attacking Do-sik. But Jisoo and Eun-yu save him and trap that monster in a trap with everyone else's help. But that monster was very strong and dangerous. Those people are not able to handle him for long, after which Hyun-soo himself has to come there. He kills that monster using his monster power. But at the time, his face was looking very scary. All the people were afraid of him. Seeing this, he starts going back to his room. But then they all say to him, "You have saved our lives. That's why even if you don't go inside, we still trust you." But he still goes inside because if he turns into a monster, he could not come under anyone's control. After which Yuri goes to everyone and treats them. At the very end, she goes to Sang-wook and while giving him a first aid kit says, "It seems you do not want to live at all. But at least do not show this before everyone. Seeing you, the rest will also lose courage." So he says, "In such a world, who would want to stay alive?" Hearing which, she says, "We have to keep the humanity within us alive until death." Hearing this, Sang-wook lets her do his treatment. But seeing this, she feels very bad that the poor man was stopping the infection from spreading in his body by applying tape on his wounds. In the next scene, Hyun-soo comes out to eat food, then he sees that all the people were staring only at him. Seeing which, he feels very bad. Then we see Yuri's dad who asks him to sit with them to eat food, and Sang-wook was also sitting there. But then they note that Hyun-soo and Sang-wook both are sitting with downcast faces and are not eating food. So Yuri's dad lifts his shirt up and starts showing them his operation scar and says, "The doctor told me that I cannot live for more than 6 months, but look, how long it has been since 6 months, but I did not die at all," and starts laughing. He was saying something like this just to make their mood right. After this, we see those two children. The little brother was insisting on playing with his sister, but his sister refuses him. So Do-sik starts explaining to her, "You should play with your brother." On which that child's sister says, "Give me some weapon so that I can save my brother from monsters, because my brother has no one except me." In the next scene, we see a boy who was bathing. Now, everyone used to get to bathe only once in 3 days, and he was just bathing when suddenly dirty water starts coming, meaning now the tank water had also become contaminated. This thing is known by Lee Yun, so he tells Do-sik and takes him along to the parking. Yuri's dad explains to him not to make a mistake, and then Lee Yun gathers everyone and tells them, "Those people have food left for only 5 days. That's why some of those people will have to go out to get rations." In the next scene, Jisoo was playing a tune on her guitar, and then Hyun-soo comes to her and says, "Which song is this?" So she says, "I don't know, I just played it like this." So he says to her, "From this tune, I remembered my home." Hearing which, she smiles and names that song Sweet Home. After this, Jisoo goes to the bathroom, but Yoon-yu was already inside. She asks her to wait, but when she comes out, she is left surprised because Jisoo had fainted by then. After which, Lee Yun checks her because he was studying medicine and tells them, "Jisoo is having appendicitis and she will have to be operated on soon." But how? Now they had only one option, that they perform her operation themselves. But in this surgery, her chance of dying was very high. But Jisoo agrees to have her operation done by Lee Yun. Then Jae-hyun says to her, "What did you pick up on your first birthday?" So she says, "Thread," at which he laughs and says, "Then your age will be quite long." Now they needed many things with which they could perform the operation. And now Hyun-soo starts remembering his school days when a boy in his class used to harass him very much and used to beat him too. He used to torture Hyun-soo and then used to ask, "Will your papa not do anything to save you?" It is found out that Hyun-soo's dad used to work in that boy's dad's office. That is why he was acting so superior. And the next day, Hyun-soo's dad comes to apologize on Hyun-soo's behalf too, even though there was no fault of Hyun-soo's. But after that, no one harasses Hyun-soo. Everyone stops talking to him. But one day all those boys were bullying another boy. Seeing that poor boy being beaten up, Hyun-soo cannot tolerate it, and he takes a stand for him. The result of which turns out to be that the very next day, Hyun-soo's dad was fired from the job. and it is found out that the boy whom Hyun-soo had saved was also asking for money from those boys for his mother's treatment. He did not get the money, so now his mother also had died. Knowing all this, Hyun-soo feels very guilty. He feels as if all this has happened because of him. Coming back to the present, as soon as they go out, a monster attacks their car. Hyun-soo was very wounded. Still, he was fighting him. Here, Jae-hyun says to Jisoo, "You will have to keep courage because I cannot make you unconscious, nor can I numb you. You will have to endure the pain." On the other side, Yuri's dad comes in front of a monster, then blood starts coming from his nose too. Then that monster tries to attack those people again, so the firefighter draws his attention towards herself. In the meantime, Lee Yun takes Yuri out of the car, and at that same time, that car also blasts. They come back into the building with the things of their need with great difficulty, and Lee Yun performs Jisoo's operation correctly, at which Jisoo says thank you to him. On the other side, friendship is seen between Jae-hyun and Sang-wook too. Jae-hyun had started drinking again. Sang-wook stops him, so he says to him, "Tell me, what did you pick up on your first birthday?" So he says, "I don't remember, and there is no one to tell me either." Here, Hyun-soo regains consciousness. Then the firefighter starts questioning him and says, "You can talk to the monster hidden within you, right? How have you controlled him?" So he says, "Because I just want to stay alive. That's why I do not let that monster overpower myself." Then that girl tells him, "The army people are looking for people like you for experiments, and where all those people are on whom they have performed experiments before, no one knows." And also tells him, "I have told the army people about you." And here we find out that the army people had given a device to that firefighter by pressing the button of which the army will get Hyun-soo's location. And in return, those people will tell her about her fiancé. But the firefighter had not pressed that button until now. After which we see Hyun-soo and Eun-yu who were sitting together. Hyun-soo says to Eun-yu, "You are able to walk properly now? Your foot was injured, right?" So she says, "Yes, because I have stopped dancing. That's why. You are very lucky. You had seen my last dance. That's it." Eun-yu's feelings for Hyun-soo were changing. It felt like they both had started liking each other. And then Eun-yu also takes a promise from Hyun-soo, but what that was, we will find out later. Here Jisoo regains consciousness, then she was feeling much better, and says thank you to Lee Yun too. Lee Yun says, "Now you can start eating and drinking, but first you will have to drink soup." After which Jae-hyun also says to her, "I said, right? Your life is going to be very long." On the other side, the supermarket owner's nose starts bleeding. And at that same time, monsters enter the building from who knows where. Jae-hyun takes his sword and goes to fight, but the monster cuts off one of his hands. Hyun-soo also jumps down to fight the monster, due to which his leg bone breaks. Here, Jae-hyun takes the monster with his one hand and goes into the lift. And Lee Yun compulsorily has to throw fire into that lift, by which, along with that monster, Jae-hyun also dies. After which we see Jisoo crying because before going to fight the monster, Jae-hyun had confessed his feelings to her, meaning he liked her. And Jisoo was crying because she felt she is cursed. Whoever comes into her life dies because of her. But Eun-yu says to her, "It is not so. Do you know I am an orphan? My mummy-daddy's accident happened because of me only. Because on that day I had insisted very much. They were refusing too, but I said, no, I have to go to the park. And on the way, the accident of those two happened. I have given many troubles to my brother too. My dance is the reason. And today I cannot even dance because my foot is bad. Will you still say that you are cursed? I feel I am more cursed than you." On the other side, Sang-wook was very sad over Jae-hyun's death because those two had become good friends. He pours alcohol on Jae-hyun's grave because he liked it very much. In the next scene, we see Yuri's dad who says to the firefighter, "There is a bunker under this building. We have to find it as soon as possible." Problems were not ending. They had not even been able to end one problem when some thugs enter their building. They create havoc everywhere and make all the people stand in a circle. A girl's foot comes out from that circle, so they shoot her right there. Then Yuri's dad hides that child in a place and says, "Whatever happens, now you must not come out." After which we see a thug who starts torturing Jisoo by touching her operation site, due to which she feels a lot of pain. After which we see the leader of those thugs, whose name was Myung. He says to everyone, "I will not harm anyone here if you all cooperate." Then Lee Yun says to him, "Where have you come from?" So he tells them, "We went to a church, but no one was alive there. They all killed each other only to save their lives." And says, "Humans have become more dangerous than monsters now." After which, Lee Yun says to Hyun-soo and Eun-yu, The weapons these people have must certainly be from killing soldiers, meaning these people will not have many weapons. We will have to work as a team so that we can remove these people from here. But before they could start working on their plan, that leader catches their plan. And seeing their teamwork, he is very surprised and asks, "Who is your leader?" Lee Yun stands up and says, "I am." So he says, "You join my team. If you do not do this, I will kill you." So Lee Yun accepts his talk and currently joins his team. Here we see that child whom a liquid-like monster had protected. That monster was perhaps good. He was not harming anyone. And that child says to everyone, "Please do not kill this monster." After which Myung goes inside and shoots the supermarket owner's wife because she was about to become a monster. But she becomes alive in a little while and becomes a monster. But now she was not in her senses. She tries to kill Hyeon-soo. That is why Hyeon-soo has to kill her. And they burn that woman's body. Here, a thug starts forcing himself on Yuri. Then Jisoo comes there and she starts beating that thug. But she was very weak. She is unable to face him. Then Yuri picks up Jaehyun's sword and kills that thug. After which she comes down and kills all the thugs too. But by doing this, her condition had become very bad. So Sang-wook comes to her to rescue her, at which she says to him while crying, "I killed a human," because she always used to save humans. At which he says, "He was not a human, but a beast. You have done nothing wrong." In the next scene, we see Myung, who, seeing Hyun-soo, says, "Should I throw him down from here? Then will he die or not?" and was making fun of him. Then Hyun-soo closes the door and says, "Now none of you can go down." But then a member of Myung's own team kills him. A thug shoots him, but it does not hit him at all. That boy was just like Hyun-soo, or perhaps more powerful than him. He extends his hand towards Hyun-soo, but then army leaflets fall from a helicopter in which the army was looking for those monsters. And if anyone tells the army about them, he will get protection by the army. That boy tries to turn Hyun-soo against everyone else and says, "These humans are more dangerous than us monsters. They will kill you sometime or other." But Hyun-soo does not pay attention to his talk. And when they come down, everyone had pointed guns at them, at which that boy laughs and says, "I told you, right?" So Hyun-soo explains to everyone, "You don't need to fear," after which we see both of them who are sitting together. And Hyun-soo says to that boy, "What will happen now?" So he says, "I feel we will never be all right. That's why I have decided that I will find people like myself, and after everything is all right, I will live somewhere separately, away from humans." He also tells Hyun-soo that he had let the army perform experiments on himself, but those people could not remove the monster from within him. Here we see Lee Yun and his sister talking to each other that the new boy is certainly turning Hyun-soo against them. Hyun-soo comes out, then he sees that all the people are killing that green monster. Seeing which, he does not feel good because that monster was not saying anything to anyone. And that little child was also crying a lot because he felt that monster is his papa only. After which, Yuri's dad sees a boy turning on that same device, meaning the army had got the location of that place. That is why chaos erupts in the whole building. Sang-wook was running outside taking Yuri because she was having a lot of breathing problems. But that boy does not let those two go outside because he felt the army was informed by those people only. But Hyun-soo lets them go. After which that boy shoots Yuri and Sang-wook from behind. And not only this, he starts killing everyone else too because a monster had overpowered him. After this, he beats Hyun-soo and says, "You are very weak. You yourself will die and will get me killed too." And then Hyun-soo turns into a monster and kills that boy very badly. But Do-sik comes to him to calm him down. Then Hyun-soo's sharp wings pass through Do-sik, by which he dies. Hyun-soo comes back to his form, but by then Do-sik had died. That's why he cries a lot. Here, Sang-wook and Yuri both die holding each other's hand. After which we see Yuri's dad, who opens Do-sik's cupboard, whose key he had given to them. So inside was a box from which he takes out brooches and pins them on both the siblings for their bravery. But the next morning, he too does not remain in this world. Now those children had become alone again. After which we see Eun-yu, who was looking at Hyun-soo, and then their promise is told to us. She had taken a promise from Hyun-soo, "You will stay alive for me." Here they remove the soil to bury all the bodies. Then they find that bunker which Yuri's dad was looking for. Now it was evening, and the army surrounds their building from all four sides. And they announce, "Hand over the infected people to us." Then a thug tries to run through the bunker's path, so he accidentally pulls a bomb kept in it. Hearing the sound of that blast, the army becomes alert and starts firing, at which they all run into the bunker to save their respective lives. But Hyun-soo was going outside. That's why Lee Yun goes after him to stop him. And he promises his sister, "I will bring him back," and goes after Hyun-soo to save him. But Hyun-soo does not stop and goes outside. after which Lee Yun starts listening to songs in his sister's music player and becomes emotional seeing his family picture. Then the building starts falling and a lot of blood starts falling on that photo, meaning Lee Yun had also become infected. Here, everyone takes Yoon Yu into the bunker forcibly. Now we see the same scene which we had seen in the beginning of the series. The army people shoot Hyun-soo and he becomes unconscious. Here, all the people who went into the bunker come out from the other side, so the army catches them, and they take everyone away by making them sit in a truck. After which the scene changes, and now we see Hyun-soo, who regains consciousness. But then he sees Sang-wook in front of him, who was driving the vehicle, with which our series ends. What do you think, friends? Would Lee Yun have died? And Sang-wook, he too would have become a monster. Only then did he meet him alive again. Meet you with the next part.